I visited Gochangeupseong. The Honam West Coast region where Gochangeupseong is located was one of the places most frequently plundered by Japanese pirates, from the late Goryeo period to the early Joseon period. To strengthen the defense of this area, the government ordered the construction of fortresses at major points. In the past, there were various opinions suggesting it was built during the reign of King Seokjong, but through investigations of the walls and historical documents, it has been established that it was constructed around 1453. On the eastern wall of the fortress, there is an inscription that reads, Gye-yu sochu gamdong song ji min, Kweyo sochu jandong song jiwin. This means, it was built under the supervision of Song Ji-min, the project manager in the year of Gye-yu. Since the nearby Mujanghyun was established in 1417, the year of Gye-yu, 1453, is derived as the most accurate date for the construction. The most unique aspect of Gochangeupseong's history is that it was not built solely by the people of Gochang, but rather by a large-scale mobilization of residents from 19 counties and districts in Jeolledo, including parts of present-day Jeonbuk, Jeonnam, Gwangju, and Jeju. The names of places such as Jeonju, Jeju, Yonggwang, and Jangsong are inscribed on various stones of the fortress. This was a kind of real name system for fortress construction. After assigning sections to be built by the respective counties, if the walls later collapsed or had defects, that county would be held responsible for repairs. It is a trace of the burdensome forced labour of the common people, and a legacy that demonstrates the efficient public management methods of the Joseon era. This is an outdoor diorama exhibit that visually represents the folk tradition of Dapseongnori stepping on the fortress in Gochangeupseong. According to legend, if you walk around once, you will recover from ailments, twice for longevity, and thrice for rebirth in paradise. The figures vividly depict a procession of people stepping on the fortress walls, each carrying their own wishes. This folk tradition originated from the labour of many people stepping on the soil to compact it, which was done to prevent the walls from collapsing as they swelled in spring after freezing in winter. The procession of figures in the sculpture well illustrates the historical act of the old citizens collectively participating in the maintenance of the fortress. Gochangeupseong, which served as a strategic point guarding the inland of Honam and the administrative centre of Gochanghyun throughout the Joseon dynasty, suffered greatly during the late Joseon period and the Japanese occupation. In 1907, the Honam Righteous Army led by Jeon Jae-hong and Go Sok-jin used Gochangeupseong as a base to engage in fierce battles against the Japanese military. During the Japanese colonial period, the government buildings inside the town fortress were damaged or forcibly demolished, and in their place, institutions like Gochang National School were established, completely losing their original appearance. To make matters worse, during the Korean War, the only remaining structure within the fortress, Gongbukru North Gate, was burned down, resulting in 2,000 Gochangeupseong, which was on the verge of disappearing into history, dramatically revived through efforts to preserve cultural heritage. In 1965, it was designated as Historic Site number 145, leading to comprehensive preservation measures. Starting in 1976, a full-scale restoration project for the fortress walls and the government buildings inside the fortress began. The restoration commenced with the main gate, Gongbukru, in 1976, followed by the East Gate, Deungyangru, and the West Gate, Jinseomun, in succession. Based on old maps and archaeological investigations, the Donghon, where the Gochang magistrate worked, the Gyeoksa, where the king's spirit tablets were enshrined, the offices of local gentry, Jakchong and Hyangchong, and even the prison Oksa, were reconstructed close to their original forms. Gochangeupseong has undergone significant damage throughout its history, but it is a rare example where the fortress construction techniques from the early Joseon period have been almost perfectly preserved. Above all, the community history of the common people, who engraved the name of their town on each stone while fulfilling their duty of national defense, is physically inscribed on the wall. I chat with Professor Yu in front of the information board. There were many interesting stories, but unfortunately the recording didn't turn out well. Make sure to check and double-check that your video recording is going smoothly too. Just past the ticket booth, the door directly in front of you is the main gate of Gochangeupseong, the North Gate, Gongbukru. This short route from the ticket booth to the gate and the surrounding area is where the key elements of Joseon-era fortress defense technology are concentrated. Even if you try to go straight to the gate, a massive stone wall blocks the way, requiring you to detour left or right to enter the gate. This structure is called the Eupseong. It wraps around the front of the gate in a circular shape, resembling a jar split in half. Its role is to slow down the advancing speed of the enemies rushing to break the gate and to create confusion in front of the gate. Enemies that enter the inner area are surrounded on all sides by our forces, not only from the front gate, but also from the massive walls on the left, right, and behind, leading to concentrated attacks. As you pass through the gaps in the fortification and enter inside, you will finally see a 2-story pavilion that displays a dignified presence. The lower floor serves as a passage connecting inside and outside the fortress, while the upper floor is designed as a lookout for soldiers to monitor and command in all directions. Gongbuk means to gather both hands in respect towards the King of the North Star. It is a name often used for the main gate or north gate of local government offices during the Joseon dynasty, reflecting the Confucian ideal of loyalty to the royal family. It was destroyed during the Korean War, but was the first to be restored to its original form in 1976 as part of the restoration. If you look at the walls around Gongbuk and the fortress, you can find the Cheseong and Yeojang. Cheseong is a structure where part of the wall protrudes in a rectangular shape. The name is derived from the pheasant, which hides its body and carefully observes its surroundings, and it serves as a facility to repel enemies climbing the wall from the side. Cheseong is also arranged around Gong. The parapet is a low wall built on top of the rampart. There are openings, gun ports, for soldiers to hide and shoot with guns or bows. You can see a mix of openings for long-range shooting, long gun ports, and those aimed directly below the wall, short gun ports. Ahead, you can see the guardhouse. The area around the gate is always occupied by soldiers and has a high flow of people, making it the most efficient place for blocking and monitoring the outside. At first glance, it appears very small, but considering the population size and administrative level of the town of Gochangeupseong at the time, it was built to a suitable size because the number of permanent inmates was not large. This is also because the prison during the Joseon dynasty was more focused on temporarily detaining individuals before their trial or execution, rather than being a space. In the courtyard in front of the prison, there are replicas of the punishment tools used at the time, such as the caning frame and the stocks, allowing visitors to intuitively understand the judicial system of the Joseon dynasty. It is also good to take a quick look inside and check the distance from the main gate and the sense of pressure from the enclosed space. The area surrounding the path from the prison to the government office is currently landscaped with lawns and walking paths. Originally, it was the place with the highest population flow and strict control within the fortress. Along the road, there would have been temporary offices or waiting areas where the guards, modern-day police and soldiers, as well as lower-ranking officials, stayed while the government office was the kitchen jurisdiction that managed the food supplies and items to be provided to the inner residence of the governor and the local government office. Therefore, the path leading from the office to the storage naturally became an administrative support route, frequently travelled by carts and labourers, transporting goods, rice, salt, sauces, etc. Additionally, due to the characteristics of the fortified strongholds built by the 19 counties and districts in Honam to defend against the coastal pirates of the West Sea, it is presumed that auxiliary warehouses, government warehouses for storing military provisions, weapons, and tributes, in preparation for both peacetime and wartime, were densely located in this northwestern flat area adjacent. Unlike Gyeupseong, Gochangeupseong had a flat land structure surrounded by mountains, so there were not many permanent residences of the common people within the fortress. However, it is highly likely that temporary barracks for the soldiers guarding the fortress and a few civilian houses supporting military service existed around the city gates and along the gentle western slope. During the government office visible in front is a place where the local governor, Hyun Gam, and their family lived, providing necessary food supplies for the inner quarters, preparing meals, and storing and managing items used for various ceremonies and banquets within the government office. Today, the term government office is used generically to refer to all government agencies, but during the Joseon, according to records, there were originally 22 buildings densely packed within the Gochangeupseong, but currently only the government office building itself has been restored. In a proper government office territory during the Joseon dynasty, there should have been numerous auxiliary buildings and facilities surrounding the courtyard, including a large kitchen for food preparation, a pen for rice, A pond can be seen to the side. In the densely built wooden structures of the Eupseong, fires were a catastrophic disaster. Especially for the military armory and the maintenance of the government office, fire prevention was the top priority. The pond served as a water source for firefighting, in addition to its landscaping purpose. The office of the magistrate, where the officers who received orders to arrest prisoners or run errands stayed, and the military office, where the military officers who assisted with local military affairs worked, were typically arranged in the space between the office of the magistrate and the armory during the Joseon dynasty. These were also close to the main gate Gongbukru and the prison Alo. An open space in the form of a yard and road was maintained to allow for the movement of a large quantity of weapons and equipment, iron, leather, gunpowder, etc., entering the armory, as well as numerous administrative supplies and tributes coming in and out of the office of the magistrate. Currently, this area only shows a pine forest and a wide lawn. But this is because, through the late Joseon period's righteous army wars, forced demolitions during the Japanese occupation, and the fires of the Korean War, the offices of numerous low-ranking officials and small warehouses that once numbered in the dozens were completely lost. Originally, it was not a lawn, but a dirt-floored yard. The building visible in front, known as the Gochang, was the government office where the local administrative staff, including the chief officer and clerks, gathered to handle the administrative tasks of the district during the Joseon dynasty. Here, the records of the local residents were maintained, and the taxes collected in the form of grains or local specialities were calculated and managed. Although it is located lower or on the outskirts compared to the governor's space, it is directly connected to the logistics centre of the government office, and the pond that supplies water for fire prevention. This layout was meticulously designed to allow clerks to swiftly execute administrative tasks and control resources under the governor's directives. The gentle slope leading up to the guest house, located at the deepest and highest point within the fortress, served as the most solemn, symbolic, and ceremonial axis of Gochang County during the Joseon dynasty. Currently, there is a wide area of pine groves and open lawns, but based on the structure of the Joseon government office and excavation findings, the appearance in the past was entirely deep. To enter the main hall, which resembled a government office, one had to pass through at least two overlapping doors, the outer and inner gates. Given that it was a highly formal government building, long corridors where the ceremonial guard or military personnel waited surrounded the courtyard between the doors. Although these doors and walls are not restored now, allowing a clear view of the Gye-yu, directly below the guest house and to the west of the local government office is the inner house, which serves as the residence of the local governor. The pathway from the working area to the front yard of the guest house was very closely connected to the inner house space, which contained the private life of the governor's family. For this reason, high walls, side gates, or densely planted trees near the main entrance road leading to the ceremonial hall, which houses the symbol of the king, there is a high likelihood that there were stone markers or signs indicating that everyone, regardless of status, must dismount from their horses and walk. Looking at the terrain of Gochangeupseong, you can see that starting from the flat land where the North Gate and the Dapseongnori are located, the elevation gradually increases as you move towards the guest house. This was to symbolize the authority of the king by placing the guest house, which represents royal power, at the highest point to create a visual impact. Now, the path from the practical office of the lower officials Joseon to the space of utmost dignity, Moyangjiguan, is open like a gentle walking trail without obstacles. However, at that time, the bustling noise of the lower officials was filtered out every time it reached the walls. So by the time one arrived in front of the guest house, only extreme tranquility and symbolic solemnity remained. It is named after Gochang's old name, Moyanghyeon, and was the most sacred and authoritative symbolic space, even higher in rank than the Donghon in the structure of local government offices during the Joseon dynasty. It is easy to think of the guest house as merely an inn where officials from the central government stayed. But this is only a part of its function. The most essential facility of the guest house is the Gyeongdang, located in the center of the building. Here, a tablet symbolizing the king was enshrined. The local governor and officials gathered at the Gyeongdang of the Moyangjiguan on the 1st and 15th of every month to perform the Mangwalri, bowing towards Hanyang, where the royal palace is located. This was the most sacred area in the district, where loyalty to the distant king was pledged, and it served as a political sanctuary, demonstrating the king's authority in the region. When a messenger or diplomatic envoy arrived with the king's orders, Gyeoji, a welcoming ceremony was held here, and a banquet was hosted, providing accommodations in the left and right rooms, Ikshil. The Moyangjiguan meets the typical format of a guest house from the Joseon period, while showcasing a neat sense of balance. The Jeongdang is the central building, with a scale of 3 bays in the front, featuring a raised roof structure that is 1 level higher than the buildings on either side. This is an intentional design to visually elevate the authority of the centre. This room is attached like wings to the left Donggik Hall and right Soik Hall, centred around the political party. Donggik Hall was of higher status than Soik Hall, so higher-ranking officials or those with higher titles stayed there, while Soik Hall was used by military officials or relatively lower-ranking officials. The Ondol Room and the Daechong Maru are harmoniously arranged, providing the restored Moyangjiguan stands tall like a standalone building on an open lawn. However, during the Joseon dynasty, to protect the royal tablet and strictly adhere to etiquette, walls, an inner gate and an outer gate were arranged along the central axis to block the front of the building. The gentle path leading from Moyangjiguan through a dense forest of pine trees and bamboo to the Dongheon and Nae-a is currently one of the most serene and beautiful sections of Gochangeupseong. However, during the Joseon dynasty, this path and the surrounding area were by no means the quiet forest path for healing that it is today. At that time, this area was the highest administrative core security zone of Gochangeupseong, where the public duties and private life of the county's highest ruler, the Suyong, were strictly protected. Now it is a natural pine forest path, but during the Joseon dynasty, numerous walls, gates, and strict guard posts blocked the passage instead of dense trees. The guest house, which housed the symbol of the king, the Dongheon, which was the Suyong's office, and the Nae-a, which was the living quarters, were completely different spaces. Therefore, the paths connecting these spaces were thoroughly separated by high inner walls gangjang, so that not only ordinary citizens, but also low-ranking officials could not pass through without a valid reason. The Nae-a, where the Suyong's family resided, was a thoroughly private living space. To prevent external eyes and noise from entering, thick earthen walls extended along the road, and walls were built or bamboo was densely planted to ensure that the inner courtyard could not be seen from beyond the walls, serving as a barrier. The governor used this road to commute from the residence Nae-a to the office Dongheon in the morning, or to travel to the guest house for the monthly rituals held twice a month. Soldiers armed with weapons stood guard in shifts at various points along the road and in front of the narrow gates in preparation for the governor's movements. In contrast to the bustling and noisy lower areas of the office and government district, this upper road was filled with an excessive stillness and a tense atmosphere to uphold the authority of the ruler. It was a solemn environment, where even the sound of footsteps had to be taken with caution. Currently, the paths around the narrow trail are filled with neat grass and trees, but originally, numerous small buildings supporting the Dongheon and Nae-a were scattered along the gentle slopes near the road. Small servant quarters Gyeobsabang, where the governor's personal secretary or servants waited, as well as facilities for storing and managing the governor's palanquin or horses, were loka. Separate storage facilities nego for the private household items and food ingredients, rice, precious local specialties, etc. of the magistrate's family were also built next to the surrounding wall. The Dongheon and Nae of Gochangeupseong are located right next to each other. This reflects the practical principle of separation of public and private spaces and efficiency of movement, which was most rigorously observed in the architectural layout of local government offices during the Joseon dynasty. The Dongheon is the public space, Oe-a, where the magistrate conducted official duties and trials, while the Nae-a is the private living space, An-che, for the magistrate and his family. The layout was designed to maximize efficiency, allowing the magistrate to step out of the inner room, Nae-a, and reach the office, Dongheon, with just a few steps every morning. The two spaces are physically very close, but they are thoroughly separated by a high wall and a limited side gate. Although it is no longer the case, strict barriers were erected to prevent lower-ranking officials and commoners who come and go to the government office for official duties from peering into or carelessly entering the inner quarters, which are the private space of the governor's farm. The government office building was constructed with a high base to give visual intimidation and authority to those waiting or looking up from below, and the roof was grandly built in a dignified gabled style. A spacious open hall serves as the centre. In contrast, the inner quarters follow the structure of a private residence Yangban house, where the family lives comfortably. To block external views, it is mainly designed in a dit shape or, like here, a gung shape that wraps around the courtyard. And instead of emphasizing authority, it is structured with practical and intimate spaces, such as ondol rooms, kitchens, and storage. If you look at the two buildings now, you might see that the surrounding walls and doors are somewhat loosely maintained, making it appear as if the two spaces are comfortably connected like a large courtyard. However, during the Joseon dynasty, the space was strictly controlled by a single wall, with the solemn tension of the Donghon courtyard and the thorough security and restricted access of TA. As you leave the Donghon and the inner courtyard and descend along the pine forest path, you will reach the Pungwalu. The route from the guest house and Donghon down to Pungwalu is a point where the character of the space within the government office changes dramatically. Descending from the thoroughly blocked private and public spaces of the Lord Inner House and government office, one enters a buffer zone, where a relatively open pond and courtyard unfold. The Pungwalu Wind and Weather Pavilion in Gochangeupseong is a two-story pavilion standing proudly right next to the pond Jidang, which is at the centre of the fortress. It is situated in a buffer zone that connects the authoritarian spaces of the government office and inner house with the practical spaces of the minor officials and administration. The name Wind and Weather is derived from expressions found in Confucian classics, such as the Book of Songs, meaning, the virtue of the king transforms the customs of the people beautifully as the wind blows. It expresses the intention to govern and lead the people according to Confucian order. By having the officials and passing citizens look up at the towering Pungwalu, it served to visually reinforce the authority of the government and the hierarchy of the ruling class in everyday life. Pungwaru well demonstrates the style of the gate tower or pavilion of government buildings from the late Joseon dynasty. It is a two-story pavilion with 3 bays in the front and 2 bays on the sides. The first floor features round stone pillars supporting the second floor platform in an open structure, while the second floor is built in the form of a spacious open hall with no walls. The roof. The second floor platform is optimized for monitoring or enjoying the surrounding scenery, with only pillars and no walls. It was used as a public, social and cultural space, where the local governor would invite officials from the central government or nearby poets and scholars to host banquets and compose poetry. Within the town fortress, where wooden buildings are densely packed and an armory handling gunpowder and weapons is nearby, fire posed the greatest threat. Pungwaru has a wide front yard that allows for quick access to the water from the pond in front, making it a command point for controlling firefighting resources and personnel in case of emergencies. In addition to the gates located on the outer walls, such as Gongbukru, a high outpost was needed in the centre of the fortress to control the situation. Climbing to the second floor of Pungwalu provides a view of the main gate area and the entire administrative zone, allowing for the monitoring of military movements within the fortress and the issuing of commands during emergencies such as Surpra. Like other government buildings, Pungwalu was completely lost during the late Joseon period. The Japanese occupation and the Korean War, but it was thoroughly reconstructed in 1988 based on old documents and maps. I will quickly go down and take a look. This well is one of the original old wells that existed within Gochang Fortress. According to records, it is said that there were 26 wells along with 2 ponds inside Gochang Fortress. The fortress is fundamentally based on a siege defense, where the people and soldiers all enter the fortress and lock the doors when pirates or enemies invade. The first thing to run out during this time is drinking water. The fact that 26 wells were dug inside the fortress shows that it was a thoroughly calculated defense infrastructure that allowed a large number of people to be self-sufficient. Waking up to a beautiful day in Gochang and looking around Gochang Fortress made me feel refreshed and light. I recommend that you all visit if you come to Gochang. That will be all for this video.